Kia ora everyone, thank you for coming to our immigration advice info session. My name is Jessie, I'm the International Student Support Advocate at UCSA, so I work in the advocacy and welfare team. Have you guys heard of us? I see nodding, that's good. If you haven't, we have a lot of things that we can help you with, so I thought I would just, before we get started, plug some things. So I'm in a team of 5 of us, and so we help all students, international and domestic. And so I have some flyers for our team just on that bar there if you're interested, if you don't know about what we can help you with. So we can help with advocacy if you have any issues with the university, if there's something that is going on and you want to talk to someone about it, you can come talk to us. If you have a grade that you don't agree with and you want to appeal, we can help you with that as well. Just any complicated process with the university, we can help you through it. We also have financial assistance that we help students with if they have anything unexpected that's happened and it turns out they have no money after that, we can help you through our hardship grant, and we have a food bank. So if you're going through anything difficult, you can come talk to us and we can see how we can help you. Anyway, so that was just a quick run through of how we can help you. I'd like to invite our immigration advisors up, Mary and Namrita, to go through the presentation we have today. At the end, we're going to have Q&A as well. So if you have any questions, just keep them to the end as well. Cool.
Right. Morning, everyone. Thank you, Jessie, for inviting me for the second year. I came last year as well, and it was a great session. At least I felt so, and I'm glad Jessie did too. So I'm here again. So I am Namrita Verma. I'm a licensed immigration advisor, and I work for AJV Global. And we assist with student visas for multiple countries and also migration to Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. Hoping to add more countries to that list eventually. Joining me this time is Mary Joseph. So she is based in Auckland. I'm based in Christchurch. And we are looking forward to interacting with you during this session and as well as the one-on-ones. So, yeah. Mary, would you like to say something?
Quickly, yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Kia, good morning. Sorry we had to drag you in this cold morning, but I'm sure Jessie's compensated with hot drinks. Great, thank you so much for making it. We really appreciate your time. I am Mary Joseph. I'm a licensed immigration advisor. I'm general manager for New Zealand, handle all the operations here for HIV Global. So just a quick thing about what we do. What's important for us is we try and create one-stop solution for everybody coming into this country, no matter the pathway that you've come in through. And we specialize in seeing students through all the way to your end goal, whatever that may be. It could be living here in New Zealand permanently or moving elsewhere, right? But then what we do, our focus has always been to ensure that students, especially who come here, half of them have an understanding of what you'd like to do here, but you do not have onshore support and guidance as to work towards that goal that you have come here for, right? So we specialize in that. we specialize in that because we have got first-hand experience of this. So Namrata and her family herself also has come in through the student route, or the pathway we call it. So her husband was a student here at one of the universities in New Zealand. My husband came to study here as well. So we kind of know the nuances and the challenges you young students would also have that come through, and not just you, it could be your partners or your families too, right? So pay attention and feel free to, if you've not already booked in for the one-on-one sessions, do take our information so that we can talk to you after, right? I'll let Namrata now take over. Done enough of talking. Enjoy.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Very technologically challenged. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. So we've already introduced ourselves, and what we're going to basically be talking about today is work and residence. Like we talked, just Mary said before, whatever your end goal is, hopefully the work and residence is obviously the next logical pathway for you after you finish your studies, unless, of course, you want to return back to your home country, which would be then a waste of time for you to be here. But yeah. So this is what we do. We have a global team, which means we have staff based all over, or as many countries as we can cover as of now. And we also do fulfill migration needs to those countries. So it's South Africa, there's India, there's UK, there's Australia, Canada, US, and we've started with Germany, Ireland, the Middle East. So it just depends where you want to go and what you want to achieve. We have staff as well who are located in different countries, and there are also some ex-immigration New Zealand officers. So I myself used to work for the department in the Delhi office for 16 years before I moved to New Zealand. We also have onshore support. How many of you have used agents or advisors to come into the country? Just a show of hands. You don't have to name them. Right. And I'm guessing the others have done it on their own then. Great. Good job. So what we do is we also are, from what we have heard, are one of the few migration companies that also have onshore support in New Zealand. So all our students who come through AJV, they have onshore support for the subsequent visas. Like Mary said, we like to see them through to the end, whatever their end goal is. And being in New Zealand, it kind of helps them to have us there, to come to us for big, small, any kind of questions, be it asking us to check the job description of the job that's been offered to them and they don't know whether it'll have a pathway to residence. We would review that and give them feedback. Be it, I want my parents to come for my graduation, we will help you with that because we are here in your time zone and we have a chat with them and we kind of guide them through everything, basically. For New Zealand particularly, we help with a wide variety of visa types, which is your work visa, which is residence, both skilled migrant category and the green list. We also help with the entrepreneur and the investor category visas. And of course, the students. If you are already onshore and you want to study another course, we could help you navigate that part as well. Well, I know the table doesn't look very simplified, but it is. So when you come in on a student visa, if you are doing a postgraduate qualification or a bachelor's degree, which is listed in Appendix 13, which means that you get a post-study visa, okay? Not everyone is eligible for a post-study work visa. How many of you are doing a postgraduate qualification, like a PG diploma or a master's? Sorry? Yes. Yes. So PhD, master's, postgraduate diploma, all of you would be eligible for a post-study work visa. Graduate diplomas get tricky. Any other diploma which is less than level 7 can get tricky. So not everyone is going to be eligible for a post-study visa. Okay? So, but if you are someone who is eligible for a post-study visa, great. You move up and you find a skilled employment. Again, skilled employment has parameters to be defined as skilled. It talks about, I don't know if you guys have heard of ANSCO, which is the Australia and New Zealand standard classification of occupations. ANSCO is skill level 1 to 5, 1 being the highest, 5 being the lowest. So I know it sounds complicated, so I'm not going to get into details as of now, but skilled employment would mean being on a certain level in ANSCO and earning the required pay rate. Okay? If that happens, great. Okay? You move on. Now, in the event you are not eligible for a post-study visa and you end up finding a skilled employment, you do have another work visa to go through, which is an accredited employer work visa. You all must have seen there was a lot of talk about the changes to the accredited employer work visa, and yeah, it is very daunting. So again, to get an accredited employer work visa, you need to meet the parameters and the new requirements that immigration has come up with. Depending on which skill level, again, ANSCO comes into play here. So this is what we would help with. We would help you navigate your pathway. We would tell you where you fit in, what would work, what are the requirements if you're a skill level 1 job, if you get a skill level 1 job vis-a-vis a skill level 4 or 5. Okay? You need to be mindful that the skilled migrant category or the point-based residence is not the only pathway. There's also the green list. The green list are basically roles which are in demand in New Zealand. They are more on the technical side, like engineers. There is IT professionals. There are obviously doctors, nurses. So it's not going to be a generic roles like sales and marketing. Okay? So those are technical. So if any of you are doing any technical courses, it's possible you would have maybe more than one pathway to residence. And it would entirely depend on what kind of job you manage to find. So the green list has some roles, not all roles listed there. Other than the roles, the green list will also have specific requirements, okay, that need to be fulfilled to be eligible under that category. There is also, I'm not sure any of you are going to be doing healthcare course in UC. Is there anyone who's doing a healthcare course? All right, so let's leave that out. Now, SMC is, because it's point-based, we will get into it when we go down to the residence pathway slides. But basically, because of the level of studies that I saw when you guys put your hands up that you guys are doing, you all are eligible for post-study, and you all will get points for different points, obviously, for PG diploma and master's and PhD. And I mean, I shouldn't say this because obviously I don't know details of your respective backgrounds, but there's a very, very good chance that you will have a pathway to residence, but you make sure that you get the right advice, whether from us or from whoever you connect with in terms of advisor or lawyer, to understand how to reach there. Okay? There's a very, very good chance you will have a pathway to residence. Okay? Now, there are green list has two. That's why you would see there's the purple box which says apply for work to residence after 2 years. And because the green list is divided into tier 1 and tier 2. So if you are in the tier 1 roles, you have a straight to residence pathway. You don't need to work for a minimum number of years or months. If you are a tier 2, if you're in a tier 2 occupations, you have to work for 24 months before applying for residence. So that is primarily the difference between the two. One is straight to residence. You've graduated today, you get the required job in the tier 1 occupation, you can apply for residence the next day. All right? Okay. And permanent residence happens after you've held your residence visa for 24 months. Okay, so that comes later. The first step is residence. Skilled employment, very important to understand, because this will kind of make or break your journey or delay it, postpone it. Skill level 1 to 3, it's the median wage or any specified rate as per immigration. If you are on skill level 4 and 5, which are lower skill jobs, you need to be earning 1.5 times the median wage. Okay? Minimum 30 hours per week is needed. That's how full-time job is defined in immigration instructions. Okay? So you need to ensure that you are, or your contract specifies that you are going to be working 30 hours per week. Accredited employer, very, very important. You can also go see if the employer is accredited on the immigration website. Just search for accredited employer, and I think it's the 3rd or the 4th link where it says check if your employer is accredited. And disclaimer that immigration has put on their website is that not all employers have agreed to have their details published, in a public public platform. So if your employer, prospective employer's name is not popping up there, it doesn't mean they're not accredited. It could just mean that they have not agreed to have their details published. So when you go for interviews, I think 99.9% of the employers always ask, do you have anything you want to ask us? Don't hesitate to ask if they are accredited, right? They already know that you're a migrant, that you don't have residence. So it's obvious that you would want to know whether they're accredited, because you need it to know for your future visas as well. Now, this ANSCO comes in here, which I mentioned that we look at job descriptions for clients who come through us to New Zealand. The substantial match of the job description to ANSCO tasks is what we do. We look at the tasks given in the job description, we look at ANSCO and what are the tasks mentioned there, and we try and find a substantive match. Please understand the title of the role that you've been offered. That is good. That's the internal organization chart that the employer has. But we are looking at the tasks that you're expected to do, because that's the one we match to the ANSCO tasks. And that's exactly what the immigration officer will also look at. So let's say, for example, if your title says you are assistant sales manager, we will look at the task that you do. It's possible that you are actually not matching up to the ANSCO tasks, because a sales manager is a high-skilled role. And maybe your manager could be meeting that ANSCO tasks, but you are not. You are actually level lower than them. So all of those nuances, all of those details is what we would do. And for that, we need the job description. When employers advertise on Seek or Trade Me, they can't post the whole job description. They give a summary of what you'll be expected to do. We can't do a match with that necessarily. So if you come back to us and say, I have found this job, I want to know which ANSCO, and is it meeting the parameters, we will need to see the job description. Because eventually that's what the immigration officer is also going to look at. They're not going to look at the title. Title aside, it's the task that you're going to be doing. You need to be paid at industry rate. So your employer should not overinflate the pay rate to meet immigration requirements, because that is also a cause of concern. So you need to know what is the going rate in the market for that kind of a role, and what are you getting paid for it. So for example, if a role, the average rate in the market for a role is, let's say, $32 per hour, but your employer says, you know what, I'm going to pay you double or triple the median wage so that you can go straight for residence, or you can, apply for residence sooner, quicker, faster. That's not going to work, because that's going to raise red flags with immigration. because that's not the going rate or the industry rate for that role. So all of that has to be balanced. There has to be logic and rationale. So there are roles which require occupational registration. So you also need to be meeting the parameters to be registered for that occupation. Okay. I don't know, again, specifically, individually, what you guys are doing. So I don't know if your roles eventually, whatever you end up working as, will need registrations. There are not a lot of roles which will have registration, and not a lot of people. I think there's teachers, there's medical health professionals mostly, chartered accountants, stuff like that. Accredited employer work visa, there is skills requirement now. This is the changes which have come into place. So you either need to have a minimum level 4 qualification or 3 years of relevant experience. Okay. If you are a skill level 4 or 5, you also need to meet English requirements. Now, people who've done a postgraduate diploma or above from New Zealand, US, UK, Canada, and Australia, that's fine. They don't need IELTS or PTE or any English score, since you guys are mostly all PG and above. So you guys will not need, even if you get a skill level 4 or 5, you won't need to meet the English requirements. But 4 or 5, the median wage requirement. When you move into residence, it has to be 1.5 times. So it's a bit tricky that even if you go on an accredited employer work visa for the time being, it won't necessarily help with residence because the pay rate expectation is much higher. I know I can see a lot of question marks on your faces. Accredited employer requirements are different to residence. One is a work visa, one is residence. The requirement for residence in terms of threshold is much higher. Okay? Most of you are going to be on post-study visa. You may not need the accredited employer work visa. So don't stress yourself out about it right now. Policies change. Postgraduate diploma holders will get 1 year post-study. Masters and PG diploma will get 3 year post-study. So at least the people who are doing masters and PhD, in 3 years, you may have your residence actually. You may not even need to go to the accredited employer work visa. For PG diploma, there is a possibility if you haven't kind of cracked a job in the 1 year that you have the open visa, you might need the accredited employer work visa. But because the immigration is so fluid in terms of changing and ever evolving, we would possibly need to do a one-on-one and look at the circumstances closer to the time that we think you might need to go for an accredited employer work visa. Okay? Again, genuine and stable role. This is again something which immigration wants to ensure, that you have not paid for the job or that the employer has not charged you a fee to offer you a job. They're going to also assess whether that role is needed in the company. They could ask for the organization chart. These are all possibilities. I'm not saying they always do that, but if they have reason to believe that the offer is not genuine, they really get into the nitty-gritties. Right. You need to have a minimum of 12 months fixed term or a permanent role when you're moving to residence. For accredited employer, if you have a fixed term for 12 months, you will only get a 12-month visa. So most people can get up to 5 years, but if your role is fixed term, you're not going to get for 5 years if your contract is only for 12 months. For residence, minimum 12 months fixed term or permanent. We generally encourage people to get a permanent job rather than go with a fixed term, because when immigration is assessing, the requirement is at the time that they assess the application, that contract should be for 12 months. So depending on how long they take, your contract could be running out. So you will have to go back to the employer and say, listen, my residence is not yet processed. I need a further contract, and it's not necessary that you know what the employer is going to say. They may not need you for longer than that. So while instructions say 12-month fixed term is okay, we err on the side of caution, and we generally ask people to go back and check with the employer if they can offer them a permanent role. Especially if the employer says, in 6 months, I'm going to, in any case, make it a permanent role. Maybe just wait for that period. Contractor or self-employment is only under skilled migrant, but the threshold for that is very high. For example, I think in the IT role in the green list, if we look, there is contractual roles, but the threshold of the pay rate is very, very high. I think it's what, Mary, is it $85 or $88 per hour? IT, yeah. And even for skill migrant category, if you're looking at contractual, if you're self-employed, the threshold that you have to have, I think, worked for 10 years in similar roles or as a contractual employee, the threshold is really high. So I don't think we know many people who have gone down the self-employment contractual role just because the threshold is high. Yes.
So there was a time when skilled work meant that it had to be related to your studies. Is that still valid or
Yes, so skilled work, if you're talking, are you talking in terms of accredited employer or residents?
residence, skill migrant category?
Okay. You can get points for your qualification which are not related to your current job or offer. However, when they're assessing your eligibility to do the job, they need to be satisfied that you're suitably qualified to do that job. Example, I let's say I do a master's in business administration, fine, but I get a job as a licensed immigration advisor. Correct. It's skilled now, by the way. So I've done an MBA. A master's will give me 5 points. Now I get a job as a licensed immigration advisor. So I'm not managing anyone. I'm not running a business. I'm not, I'm an employee. How does my background match up to an MBA? So my background would be I have 16 years of experience in immigration space, or I've also done a course for licensing. So that is the relevance. The MBA is only for the points. Yeah.
So your job does not need to be related to
The point for the qualification that you are taking, but it still needs to be, you still need to show that you're suitably qualified either through previous or some other qualification or work experience to do that job, because that's the ANSCO requirement. If you look at ANSCO, suitably qualified. So if a skill level 1 role, you need to have minimum a bachelor's degree or higher, relevant, or you need to have relevant 5 years of work experience. That experience or qualification can be different to the one that I'm claiming points for the qualification. So master's is my highest, but it's irrelevant to my job. But I have a bachelor's as well, which is relevant, for example. So I'll take that as being for the job and my 5 points for my master's. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does.
There are two different things
Yeah.
in the policy.
You need to talk into this, otherwise
Yeah.
they won't record.
So the policy puts these things in two different, say, verticals. One is you have to have qualifications to gain points. And the second is you've got to be suitably qualified for the role. They're not interconnected.
So my job has to be relevant to what I studied before, or
It could be anything as long as, like, for example, I'll give you other examples as we go. Say, for example, you may have done a course in, say, IT from your home country, right? But you've come for a management course. A lot of IT people end up doing a management or an MBA, right? Now, when you go out for a job, you can look for jobs as a management person or in area of IT because you have qualification in that area. However, your previous qualification also needs to be assessed then, right? So it truly depends. Now what happens is when we look at ANSCO and assess your suitability, we also look at what is the qualification under ANSCO that's required.
So that's to say, it has more something to do with what I study now here in New Zealand.
Does not matter when you've studied or where you've studied, as long as you're suitably qualified for the role. So I'll give you another example. For example, there is a role called personal secretary in ANSCO, which is skill level 2, right? All you need is just a diploma. Now, you could have studied a PhD here in New Zealand, whatever area. You may not have, or you may have done something else in your home country, which is completely irrelevant to your job. However, you'll still be declared suitably qualified if we can show that whatever we've studied is a collective, collectively applicable to your job. Like, for example, as a personal secretary, you need to know how to organize stuff. You need to know how to manage calendars. You need to know how to, schedule and plan stuff. That you could have learned from your PhD, and you could have learned a little bit of stuff, IT and stuff from your previous qualification. So that's why I'm saying that's what our job is. We will present it for you. It's not your job to break your head as to whether it's going to be suitable or not. The way we assist our students is, don't bother about what the job description is, whether you're suitably qualified. Crack the role, crack that job. Talk to us before accepting the job, though, to say, listen, this is my goal. Does this job help me get there, right? Sometimes it won't. It could just be a foot through the door into the employment space. And we'll tell you that. We'll tell you, so listen, this is step 1 to get you into the door. And then once you get in, you've got to work your way upwards, right? Some jobs, like a lot of management, I think there's a lot of misconception in the market saying, if you study a business program or a management program in New Zealand, you need to have a managerial role. That's incorrect. Off the bat, I can talk about 30 roles on ANSCO, which are not managerial, and will get you to residence. Okay, so it's important to understand, okay, this is my qualification, this is my specialization, what are the list of jobs that I could possibly do? Okay, and that's something also we do with our students. The day they land into New Zealand, we also help them sometimes pick up their course papers and selections. People do fancy degree, strategic development of urban whatever. I'm like, what are you going to do with that in New Zealand if you're just a fresh grad? Nobody's going to give you a job in that area, right? So we try and help you understand, is just stay more grounded and understand what will get you a job. So even if you're studying right now, it may be worth it for you to start talking to us now, because if you're in your bachelor's, or say you're about to pick up an industry project in the next term, it may be fetching for you to talk to us now and say, listen, Mary Namrita, this is my qualification, this is my background, this is my goal. What are the kind of industry projects, or what is the kind of, internships I'm supposed to pick up eventually to help me get there? That's what it is.
So you also apply for residence on behalf of students?
Like we mentioned, we help with a variety of visa applications. So residence is, one of them. Post-study work visa. Now, you have to have graduated and completed the course that's mentioned on your student visa. If you have come to do a master's and you've been given a visa to do master's, and for some reason you decide that, you know what, I have finished the papers for the postgraduate diploma, I don't want to do the next 6 months. My university is okay with me kind of stopping right now and getting a postgraduate diploma. I just need a 1-year post-study. I don't care about the 3 years, which is generally unlikely, but let's say for whatever reason, don't do that, because you will not even be eligible for the 1-year post-study, because your visa clearly states that you need to have completed a master's. So if you're planning to change or stop studying, don't do that till you have sought immigration advice, because that could impact your eligibility for the post-study visa. So either the advisor will tell you a way around it, like how you could still get a post-study, or if there is no possibility, they will tell you that don't finish your studies, don't stop. Okay. Course duration required, if you guys have any, if you've gone through instructions or looked at policy ever, minimum 30 weeks of study in New Zealand. Okay. We will talk about what post-study work visa durations are when we go to the next slide. Health and character requirements need to be met even for every category, including post-study. So even though you may have been of good health and character when you did your student visa, that doesn't automatically entitle you to a post-study. You still have to meet the character and the health requirements. Please understand, and we tell that to every student, even our own students when we do sessions with them. Character can get impacted with traffic violations and convictions as well. Drunk driving, overspeeding, all of that impact good character. So you need to be very, very mindful that you don't have traffic violations or convictions. You need to apply for the post-study visa within 3 months of the end date of the student visa. Okay? Proof of funds, it's $5,000. You need to show for your living expenses for the post-study work visa. So your spouse and children may also be eligible for work visa and dependent students or visitor visa, depending on the child's age. Previously, immigration used to issue post-study visa more than once. So for example, if I did a bachelor's, I would get a post-study visa, and then I didn't find a job, or it didn't help me further for residence, I say, okay, let me just do a master's and get a post-study visa again. Now, once you've been given a post-study visa, even if you do another course and a higher level course, there is no more subsequent post-study visa. So let's say if you're doing a bachelor's and you say, you know what, I should do a master's and get my 3 years, or I think a better example is if you're doing a postgraduate diploma, which gives you 1 year post-study, and you know in your mind that you do want to do master's as well, a suggestion, do it consecutively so that you get your 3-year post-study. Don't take a gap and say, oh, let me get my 1 year post-study, and then, after maybe 6-7 months, I'll enroll again for a master's. Because once you've been issued a post-study, even if you do the master's, you're not going to get the 3-year post-study. Okay? So that's very, very important to know, because I know when the changes happened, a few people got caught out and they couldn't go for the subsequent, even though they did a higher level course after that. Okay?
And it doesn't get renewed either, right?
Nope. Okay. I know during COVID, when a lot of the people who on post-study visa were stuck offshore, the government did, allowed and gave some extra 1 year, but that was a one-off thing. It's not something that they do or will, that we know of that they'll do in the future as well. Hopefully there won't be another COVID. Oh, yeah.
Say that apply within 3 months at the end of the student visa, right? So I want to ask, can I apply before the end of my student visa?
Yes, you can. That's the latest, within 3 months of the end of your student visa. So a lot of people who finish their course in November or December, they get a visa up until March, right? You don't have to wait until March. You can apply once you finish your course and you have received your completion letter from the university. You can go ahead and apply for the post-study visa. You don't have to wait till March. And maybe that's a good idea as well, because when you go to the job market looking for jobs, the employer sees that you have a longer duration visa as opposed to a short duration visa, which is going to finish in 2-3 months, and you may not be a very attractive candidate for them.
And actually, I have one follow-up question now. So a lot of my friends are in the same situation,
Yep.
which is the completion letter, right? So I am in my
So
we asked the school and they say they're gonna provide us a letter to, official letter from the school that, okay, in this certain day they will give the like confirmation letter so that we can apply before that day.
so there's two things for you. If the university is being generous and they're able to give you a completion letter, and a completion letter will need to basically say that you're eligible to graduate, not that you have just completed the course. Because you could have completed the course at your end, but you may not be passing the papers. I mean, I don't mean that you specifically, but anyone, okay? So the letter has to clearly state that this person has completed this qualification and they are eligible to graduate. That basically means that they've done the review of your assessments and they know that you're going to pass. It's just that the formal transcript and all of that hasn't come through yet. That's fine. If you get that, you can apply. If they cannot give you a letter like that because they actually haven't finished marking the papers to confirm that you are eligible to graduate, in that case you should be applying for a subsequent student visa, awaiting the result. Why a student visa? Because in the event, let's say a lot of master's students do thesis and they do their research and they submit it, but it comes back to them saying that, we need you to do some more stuff around this or rewrite this or whatever. You can't do that on a visitor visa or any other visa. You need to do it on a student visa. So there was an instance with, I'm not going to name the university, one of the universities where I think 4 students of ours the visa was expiring before the result was going to be declared. So we just applied for a further student visa for 2 months or 3 months for them to let them stay on that student visa till the result didn't come. Okay? Are you saying they won't allow you?
UC would have to do that. Normally, they will, if you your visa the student visa would expire in March. The course will end in May.
Yep.
For the gap period.
Yeah.
UC advisor, we have it at the graduate school. They would help us to give some letters so that we can extend.
Yes. So you basically get a further student visa, awaiting the result. But in your situation, if the university is giving you a letter saying that you're eligible to graduate before your current visa expires, then you can use that to apply for the post-study. So it's very important what's written on the letter. Okay? It has to clearly state that you are eligible to graduate. That means they've done the check on your assessment. It's just the formal release of results has not happened, but they have seen that you've passed, like you're not failing anything. All right? Yeah. Welcome. Post-study. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
So with that process, so say you have to apply for 2 to 3 more months on your student visa, you have to submit that as a fully new application.
Yes.
$400.
Yes, $410. It's a new application. Same student full fee paying.
And then turn around and pay the fee
For a post-study. Exactly. Yeah. I know it's not an ideal situation, but that's unfortunately the only way to proceed. So post-study work visa, if you've done a level 7 bachelor degree or a level 8 qualification, again, like I said, minimum 30 weeks of study. Duration that you've spent studying the course, that will be the validity of the post-study visa. If you've done a level 9 or 10, which is master's or PhD, 3 years. If you have a non-degree level 7 or below qualification, it's again at least 30 weeks per individual qualification and how much time you've studied. Now, non-degree level 7 qualifications, not all are eligible for post-study. The Appendix 13 kind of clearly states, if you scroll down, it states the non-degree level 7 and below qualifications that are eligible for a post-study. And that has, I think, teaching. It has some engineering diploma courses. Yeah. So not all will be eligible. For example, people who do the diploma in community and healthcare kind of course, that's not listed. So you're not going to get a post-study work visa after that. You immediately have to have a job to go on an accredited employer. Right. And where you have occupational registration needed for the job to do the role, you could get an additional 1 year post study visa. Okay. So, again, depending on your individual circumstances and what courses you're doing. So, anyone who's doing master's, postgraduate diploma, or a bachelor degree, you are going to head towards a post study. It's the non degree ones where we need to really see whether it fits in or is in that table to be eligible, and it has to be identical. It can't even have one word moving up and down. Okay. Yes.
One question. So, actually, I'm studying master for 1 year courses.
Yep.
It's a thought master, and I have two semester to complete the whole course, which is each semester is 12 weeks of the study period. But it wouldn't if I only take two semester. That means there's only 24 weeks of study. I want to know whether it's still qualify for the.
Yeah, that'll be a bit tricky.
No, she won't.
Yeah.
It's not. Unfortunately, it won't.
Yeah.
They're very strict about 30 weeks.
30 weeks is minimum.
What degree are you doing?
I'm doing the master of what AI. So I'm not so sure that.
We'll have to examine your
Yeah.
your
Offer letter.
have a look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I will just.
And many times what happens is you could also go back to the university, and they would need, if they think that it's 30 weeks, they need to give a letter, and like we would have to see
Or maybe add an extra credit
paper.
or paper, whatever, to increase that. But let's look at it one on one, all these kind of problems, yeah, because this is why we're here, to look at these individual issues. Because unfortunately, I mean, I shouldn't be saying that here, but universities are not very well versed with what immigration requirement is. They go with their internal understanding of, not understanding, I'd say, internal arrangements of the subjects. You know, sometimes they fast track certain degrees and they think that, oh, it's fine. It's, you know, a student is finishing in say 8 months instead of 12 months. So it's good for them, but unfortunately, it does not align with the policy, right? It's also happened that sometimes some students have got a cross credit, so they come in to study a master's, and then they realize, oh, you've got a master's from your home country. You know what? You can get cross credits on certain papers and get a refund. The students get excited because you get refund of your, and you've got to study fewer weeks, but then you end up on a disadvantage because it does not meet 30 weeks requirement, right? So this is one problem. The other problem that comes around post-study work visa, sorry, I should remember this, yeah. The other problem that happens around post-study work visa, I've noticed, is some of the students tend to not pass their program, you know, in the normal scheduled period. Like, you know, so for example, you've failed and you have not got a paper that you're supposed to finish. So then you extend your student visa, you do it another time. I've seen people, they've failed the second time around. When you fail the second time around, you've got to then again apply for another extension. Unfortunately, you will no longer qualify for a student visa at that point in time. When you fail a paper the second time around, immigration will say, okay, you're no longer eligible because the policy does not allow you to study the same course, the same paper again the second time around, and then you will be granted a visitor visa. So now the students like, okay, as long as I'm able to finish my degree, let me finish my degree. Okay, now let's say hypothetically 31st March was the last date of your student visa, right? And to finish that additional paper, you've got to take 6 more months. That's a whole term of visa, right? Immigration's generous and gives you a visitor visa to finish that last paper, which is for 6 months, okay? And then at the end of the year, past December that year, you apply for your post-study saying, oh, I finished my master's, done. Do you see the technical problem there? The end date of your student visa is March 31st, and you're applying almost 9 months later for your post-study. You become ineligible for your post-study work visa. Yeah.
What if, like, for example, my qualification is a 3-year qualification, right? And during this 3 years, I go back to my home country to see my family for multiple times. So does New Zealand immigration check that as well?
They
Like,
do.
say-
They do. So,
Yeah,
for example, that's a very good question. it won't really matter if you're doing a 3-year bachelor's, but I've seen master students have that problem where, because of this whole COVID thing, the flexibility of studying online is increased in a lot of universities. Some of them are going back into their home countries and finishing their internship or projects in their home country, and they're only for 6 months here. So, suppose if you're doing a course of 1 year and you actually studied 30 weeks, only say 20 weeks in the country, and did say 20 weeks offshore for a project or whatever, you're in trouble. New Zealand immigration clearly sees how many weeks you've studied onshore in New Zealand. So as a 3-year bachelor students, it won't impact because they look at 30 weeks over 3 years.
Right. Actually, my 3-year qualification is a 3-year PhD qualification.
Then yeah, but then even in that 3 years, you need to ensure you do at least 30 weeks here in New Zealand. That's you're not on a negative side if you're doing a longer duration of course like 3 years or a PhD or a bachelor's. The real ones who get in trouble are the PG diplomas and the masters, because they usually are on a very tight schedule and the duration's lesser. So those are the ones that are a bit more tricky. Yeah.
To say the immigration literally checks.
Yeah, you're in and out. Yeah, absolutely.
Like each of your entries.
Absolutely. And they will also ensure to see whether you do have permission from the university to, kind of study offshore. For PhD again is a no contact degree. So you're still on the safe side because, you don't have to meet your guide every other day. But for bachelors, it's different, because you need to have those certain periods you have to study here. So are you studying a PhD? Yeah. Oh God, you don't look like you're a PhD student. That's a compliment. That's a compliment. Look like you're studying a bachelor's degree.
Yeah. I thought she's just in year 13 come to check out. Yeah. But yeah, you immigration can see your movements. What they have is called an AMS. It's an application management system. You can see each and every movement, which port you embarked on, disembarked on, what time, what flight, what date. So yeah, so they keep a tab if they have to. They will know exactly when you've exited the country or entered and from which port, which airline, what was the airline number. So yeah. Yeah, you may want to hide it, but they kind of track you like Big Brother. Okay. Yes.
Outed myself, but I'm in the international team at the university, and this is incredibly helpful. I just want to reassure you, 2 academic semesters at university is considered a full year
Okay.
of study. Yeah, so it's not the exact weeks of the semesters because they also count the mid-semester break and they count your exam periods. So I can see you getting really, really worried. If you've done a full academic year, that is considered 1 year. That is considered the 30 weeks.
On that note, is that mentioned on the offer letter, the start date? As long as that's what I said. As long as it's mentioned, so it's not actually the dates that you go to class, but if your
Start and end date.
Start and end date is you're good.
Yeah, 10 to November.
Yeah, that's why we need to see the offer letter, and thanks for clarifying that. Yeah. Interim visa, a lot of you, I don't know if you've heard of interim visas. So interim visas are like the Australian bridging visas. Basically, they permit you to remain lawfully in the country. Okay? So if my visa is expiring next week and I've applied for a new visa, but we know that immigration may not be able to process it in that 1 week, and my current visa will expire, by the time I actually get the new visa. That period in the middle is called an interim visa. So interim visa permits you to remain lawfully in the country. You're not unlawful. So if you get an interim visa, it's not a bad thing. It's regularized your status so that you don't go unlawful. Yes.
So we get into it provided that we have already submitted
Yes.
application for another
Yes.
visa,
Yes.
and it's automatic.
Yes, it's an automatically generated visa type. Okay, so system will see, okay, this person's visa is expiring. Oh, okay, they've also applied for a new visa. So here you go. Here's your interim visa. It's not manually issued. Yes.
If someone goes on an interim visa, can they volunteer?
Interim visas will have conditions attached to it. And I'll go on to the next slide and I'll tell you what the conditions would be. this is the validity of the interim visa. So if your application for a further visa is approved, then the interim visa gets automatically cancelled. It's null and void on the day of the issuance of the new visa. If your application, the subsequent application that you've applied for, it gets declined, your interim visa will expire 21 calendar days. So which means it gives you that little bit of leeway to kind of leave the country, make arrangements, and depart. If you withdraw your subsequent application, you have again 21 days. And if your subsequent visa is still under consideration, because interim visa is maximum for 6 months, okay, then the interim visa will expire 6 months, which is what it is. And you can, what we do is I think we've possibly had it once. We've gone back to immigration to request for a further visa. That's when it could be issued manually. Okay. And it's very rare for you to need another interim visa or any visa of that sort, because normally decisions are given within that interim visa period. But sometimes there's national security checks and stuff which happen, which take much longer. It could, so those are very rare cases. So there's not many examples I can give you of those. Now the conditions of interim visa. So if you're going from a student visa to another student visa, your interim visa will have student conditions, which means you can continue your studies. If you're going from a student visa to a work visa, which is post-study work visa, for example, you will have visitor conditions. You cannot work. So that's when you need to, maybe if you've already cracked a job while on a student visa, and when you get your post-study visa, you can start your full-time job. You need to let the employer know. I mean, that would be just basic etiquettes, I guess, that if I'm on interim visa, I cannot start working. Okay. If from a student visa, for whatever reason, you have to go on a visitor visa, it's visitor conditions. From a work, now those who have partners, from work partner, you're going to another work partnership. The partner will have open work visa conditions, because partner work conditions are open most of the time, yeah? So your partner can continue working. So let's say you're doing a PhD. Sorry, I'm not pointing you out. I don't know whether you have a partner or whatever, but you're doing a PhD. Your partner is on a work visa, partner of a student. When you apply for your post-study visa, they will also apply for a partner of a worker visa now, okay? You go on interim visas because obviously the processing hasn't taken place. Your interim visa will have visitor conditions. You can't start working. But your partner is going from partner of student to partner of worker. They can still continue working because their interim visa conditions will be an open work visa. All right? Yeah. So if you go from a partner, yes. Yes. Yeah. And your interim visa will have conditions written on it to better explain, like if you, let's say you do it on your own, you don't have an advisor to give you, explain the visa type. The visa will say that your interim visa conditions are that of a visitor or a worker or a student or whatever, okay? If you have a partner, again, sorry, I'm using you again because you're sitting right in front of me. So if your partner, visa, they say, oh, you know what, my employer wants to put me on an accredited employer visa because, it's better for me, blah, 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 whatever. They will then have visitor conditions because they're moving from a partner-based visa to a specific employer-based visa, not another open partner visa. So they will need to actually wait for the accredited employer visa to be approved before they can continue to work. Okay? Each one's situation and interim visa conditions are different. So whenever you reach that stage, you have two ways to know what the conditions are. One, of course, the visa label will have the specific conditions listed on it. Second, if you have an advisor or a lawyer who has, lodged your subsequent application, when your interim visa is issued, they can explain the conditions to you. Okay? I'm very briefly going to talk about accredited employer because most of you may not even need to go on it, but it's just something it's good to know kind of thing. Up to 5 years is what most people can get. Certain occupations also have a pathway to residence. Accredited employer, it's called an accredited employer work visa, so the employer needs to be accredited. Okay? You must be paid median wage. Current median wage is paused for work visa at $29.66 per hour. For residents, it is $31.61 per hour. The pause is temporary. We don't know when the government will lift that pause. It could be tomorrow, it could be 6 months later. Again, minimum 30 hours per week. That's how full-time employment is considered. Spouse and children could qualify. Again, salary requirement has to be met. There is no age limit for an accredited employer work visa. Residence has an age limit, under 55. English proficiency test may be required, again, depending on the skill level of ANSCO, which we spoke about. But because you guys have studied or studying here, and if you've done bachelor, anything above a bachelor, PG dip, master's, PhD in New Zealand, you will not need to meet the English requirement. Health character, again, need to be met. Same thing, same rules. Driving convictions, I can't reiterate this enough, will impact good character requirements. Okay. When you are applying for a job, very important, check if the employer has accreditation. As I mentioned, some of the employers are already listed on the INZ website if you want to check, but immigration themselves have given a disclaimer clearly saying that not all employers have agreed or volunteered to have their information on a public platform. Just because you can't find your employer on that list doesn't mean they are not accredited. Okay, you just need to ask the employer. Apply with a cover letter. Make sure you check with them if they're willing to support you, because they know you are a temporary visa holder, whether they will or have they supported previous employees. We have come across, and it's very rare, but we have come across people who have not checked, and when they are closer to applying for residence or an accredited employer work visa, the employer says, well, we can support you for a work visa, but we don't really do residence. So you have put in all that effort and time to get that experience, meet the point requirements, and then you come to a dead end because you're not going to be able to proceed with residence. So my belief, and you could have a different thought on it, that's absolutely fine, is that better to have those open conversations before you put in that commitment, because you don't want to reach a stage where, you thought you would have a pathway to residence with that employer, but it doesn't work out. So have those difficult conversations. And of course, you have to be diplomatic. You can't, it's about how you approach the situation, okay? You can discuss the visa chances. No advisor or lawyer can give you a guarantee of a visa, but you can definitely discuss what are the chances of getting residence with this particular job or this role. That's what Mary said, right? When we do an assessment of your job offer, your job description, we kind of tell you that whether this will lead to residence eventually, or it could just be a stepping stone into the workforce, New Zealand workforce, because some of us may not have the experience of the New Zealand market, like in terms of working there. So sometimes it's a stepping stone. And yeah, accept the offer thereafter. You need to be very mindful where you are looking for jobs. Facebook is an option, yes, provided you are aware that that company has some sort of online presence, you have a website. You got to be very careful about not getting scammed. Where a job offer is being offered, where they say, you know what, you need to register with us and pay us $100 to, no, red flag, big red flag. No employer should be charging you to offer you a job. And I guess if you do come across that, try and report it if there's a way to report it, but generally just stay away from those kind of offers or advertisements and stuff. Skill migrant category. This is the point-based one that I was talking about. So you can get points based on either occupation which has registration or qualification or income. Okay, so one of these three plus New Zealand skilled work experience. People who are doing PhD, you get your 6 points, which is needed for skill migrant, straight up. However, you also need to have a job offer. You can't get residence without a job offer. The good thing with PhD is you get your 6 points straight up. You don't need any New Zealand work experience. So it's your PhD, 6 points, and a job offer, skilled job offer, not any job offer. Masters will get 5 points. You need 1 more point, 1 year of New Zealand skilled work experience. Postgraduate diploma, 4 points, 2 years of skilled work experience. Bachelor degree, you will get 3 points, 3 years of New Zealand skilled experience. So that's how you make up your 6 points. Each year of New Zealand skilled work experience is equivalent to 1 point. Yes.
Yeah, can I ask you? So in my program, right, I'm in the last semester and they offer an internship.
Yes.
And the internship is unpaid.
Yes.
So is that 3 or 4 months and does it count the work?
Internship will not count because internship is part of your course requirement.
So how's about after graduated? Because the market right now is quite competitive and
I'm sorry, your?
So I was talking about the internship offer by the school, but how about the internship if I get after I complete the graduation?
No. Skilled work experience means working 30 hours per week, median wage. Yep. Paid median wage with an accredited employer. For residents, the median wage is 31.61. So your 1 year of experience will have to be at that median wage, not the paused, because the paused median wage is only for the work visa. Okay? Yeah.
If I got my master's degree out of New Zealand, and does it count for the point?
Yeah. So if you've got a master's degree which is outside New Zealand, depending on whether it's exempt from NZQA assessment, and whatever points it sits on, because some of the offshore master degrees are equivalent to PG diplomas in New Zealand, right? So where does it sit in the exempt list? If it's not exempt, you will need to get it assessed by NZQA. Okay, you can consider offshore qualifications. So for example, someone doing a PG diploma here, but it's again rare, but let's say you've done a master's offshore. Okay, that master's, obviously, if it's assessed to be level 9, which is New Zealand masters, you get 5 points for that, which is more than what your PG diploma would get you. It'll get you 4 points. So you can consider offshore qualifications, but depending if they're exempt from assessment, where they sit then, or if they are not, then you need to get them assessed by NZQA before you claim points. Yeah. Yes. What do you mean in the course that you're studying? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Okay. Yeah, so the work experience doesn't have to be relevant to the master's for which you're claiming points, but ANSCO comes into play here, where you need to be suitably qualified for the job that you're doing. Now, that could be through maybe a qualification that you had previously or experience that you had previously. Okay? And did you join in late? Did you come in late? I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you in a spot because I think we discussed this in quite a bit of detail. What happens is that I'll quickly summarize it. So, as advisors and any lawyers who deal with migration, that's our job to do that assessment for you to determine, because a lot of skills sometimes are transferable. Okay? So what we would look at is, what is your background? Have you worked in this space or the job that you've got before? Or you have another qualification, which could be from your home country, which is relevant to the job that you're doing. Okay? It doesn't have to be relevant to the masters that you may have done here, but it still needs to be relevant to your background, whether academic or experience. Okay? So that's the assessment that we do. Sometimes, let's say your bachelor's is relevant to the job that you're doing, but bachelor degree we know will only get you 3 points, but the master's is getting you 5. So we'll use the master's for the qualification points, but for the job, for the work experience, we will consider your other qualification. Okay? Right. Same things, accredited employer, 30 hours per week. Like I said, for residents, you have to be under 55. There is an age limit for any residence application under any category in New Zealand. English, health, and character requirements have to be met. If you have done a bachelor, PG diploma, master's, PhD from New Zealand, English requirements, you don't need to do an IELTS or a PTE. You're considered to have met because you've obviously studied here at that level. You would have basic English understanding, hopefully, yes.
So this work experience that we need.
Yep.
What if the company is outside New Zealand and we work remotely from here?
No.
Okay. And what?
How would you check their accreditation then?
Okay. Yeah. And what if the company is based in New Zealand but I work remotely from outside?
Who is your employer?
Somebody in New Zealand, say Deloitte or something,
Hmm.
and they let me work from outside the country. So does my work experience in that company count?
That's going to be tricky because where are you getting paid? Where are you paying your taxes? You have to be working in New Zealand 30 hours per week. How does all that calculation happen? You just complicate it further for immigration to raise concerns on multiple factors. So the idea, when you come to any lawyer or advisor, the idea is to make it a smooth process for you, not add further complications or give ammunition for immigration to raise concerns on, basically take the focus away from your experience into other things, okay? Yeah. Straight to residence. This is the one that we talked about earlier, the tier 1 green list. Certain roles, you need to have an occupation, an offer for a role which is in the tier 1 of the Appendix 13. You need to meet the specific requirements that are there. It could be related to registration, it could be related to qualification, it could be related to remuneration. Simply having the offer itself for a particular role is not enough. You need to meet the parameters that are there for that role to be eligible for straight to residence. Example, secondary school teachers have been moved to tier 1 of the green list. Only secondary school teachers, okay? The requirement is registration with the teaching council and a practicing certificate, okay? IT roles, there are some IT roles which are on the tier 1 green list. No qualification requirement on the green list for them. Remuneration threshold, $67, $68, $66 per hour. Okay? Engineers, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, product engineer, lots of engineering roles. Requirement, qualification. There are 4 or 5 requirements. You have to meet one of them. Washington Accord, initial degree, it has to be recognized. Or you need to have an honors degree in engineering. Or if you have a level 7 degree, level 7 qualification, you need to have a letter from Engineering New Zealand stating that you meet the benchmark requirements to be a chartered engineer in New Zealand. Or you actually need to have a registration with the Engineering New Zealand to work as an civil engineer or mechanical engineer or whatever. So all these roles will have specific requirements that you need to meet to be eligible for straight to residence. One thing that remains the same, unless a remuneration is specifically mentioned, which is in case of IT roles, you need to be on minimum the median wage, which is 31.61. All right? Okay. Accredited employer, that's an unsaid thing. Now it's definitely come in for everyone who wants to apply for residence. Spouse and children can be included. Age, English, health, character. Consistently the same requirements. Work to residence green list is tier 2, which we talked about. Tier 1 is straight. Tier 2 is you have to work for 24 months in the role. Okay? Again, there are specific requirements for the roles in the tier 2 list as well. Tier 2 list has early childhood teachers, primary school teachers. I can't think of the others off the top of my head. Mary, do you recollect any in the tier 2 other than the teachers? There's auditors, technicians maybe. Yeah. So there are a few roles there as well. Again, not just having the job offer for that role, you also have to meet the parameters that are there to be eligible for residence after 24 months. Same requirements if you can see. Accredited employer, 30 hours, spouse, children, age, health, character, English. That consistently remains the same. I'm not going to go over this because none of you are doing healthcare. So this is sector agreements which need to be renewed. So this does not apply to you guys. So if you want to read it, you can. But it's not relevant to any of you, I guess. Things to remember. You need to understand skill jobs. I think we've spoken a bit about it at different times during the presentation today. It's very, very important to understand what is a skilled job. Not all roles will get you the accredited employer work visa or residence. You need to be very mindful of your visa conditions. If you don't adhere to them, you're considered to be in breach, and that impacts your future visa prospects. Okay? It's a good idea to get some part-time experience when you are studying, only because it does give you something in terms of an understanding of the New Zealand workforce. Also, when an employer is looking to hire you full-time, they know that you have worked and understand how working in New Zealand, actually works out. And you understand policies, you understand processes, you understand. Also, for your own knowledge, you should also understand what your rights are as an employee. Okay? Please do not be self-employed while on a student visa. Can't be driving Uber. Okay? Big no. Make sure you are aware of your visa expiry date. So, as we said, student visa, within 3 months of their expiry, you need to do your post-study. Or, as soon as you finish your course, if you have been given a longer duration student visa, you can do the process sooner as well. Need to start the process well in time, because from a student to work, you go on interim, which does not give you work rights. So you will be on a visitor visa, not able to earn anything and eating off your savings. So you need to plan it better. Yes?
Hi, sorry. I have this question that is kind of specific, but this has been hanging over my mind for a while. So I'm currently on a student visa that is going to end on the end of September.
This year.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it started on July last year.
As it was issued in July.
It was issued in July. So I only need to start the process 2 months before September, not 2 months before July this year, right?
No, before the end date of your visa.
Okay, September.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When are you finishing your paper, your assignments and submissions and everything?
I'm on my first year of the PhD, so I'm only going to finish the PhD in 2 years.
Oh, okay. But you need to obviously get a subsequent visa, student visa. Yeah.
Because when I first applied, I did not have a scholarship.
Yeah.
So it was all still a bit up in the air. So they only gave me a visa from July last year
Till September this year. Yeah. So ideally, once you finish and you get the next offer for the next period, just apply for the student visa. Ideally 2 months in advance, because you're going from a student visa to a student visa. Even if you go on interim visa, you will be able to study.
Okay.
It's for people who are going from student to work at this point. If you go on an interim visa, you basically are going to live off your savings if you have got savings, if you've been smart. Yes.
With PhD, my understanding is that you can apply for your post-study once you submit the thesis. So you haven't actually defended, you're not done.
Yes, they've changed that recently. Initially, it used to be the completion thing, but now if you've submitted your final dissertation, you can apply. But that's recent. In fact, last week was when they made that clarification. Okay? Yeah. Take up projects, volunteer. Volunteering is defined very clearly in immigration where there is no gain or reward and it cannot be even paid in kind. So, when you volunteer, for example, let's say I volunteer at a school, and they say, oh, you know what, we're going to give you free transport. That's being paid in kind. That's not volunteer by immigration's definition. So be very mindful where you're not allowed, for example, visitors. So when your family comes visiting, you have a young sibling who's like, I'm here for 3 months with you, let me volunteer. You got to be very mindful. They can volunteer on a visitor visa, but what is it that they're getting out of it? And if it's payment in any kind of, not necessarily cash, but in kind, that is not considered volunteer work. They're in breach of their visa. So you got to be very, very mindful. When in doubt, check. Okay? This information is on the INZ website, just FYI. When you are changing your course or conditions of your visa, if you are not confident, it is strongly recommended you take immigration advice from an advisor or a lawyer. Okay? Just to ensure that what you do does not impact your visa current, what you're applying for, and any future visas. Okay? The last point is, of course, not all courses qualify families to accompany. You need to take advice. But the last one is actually very important because a lot of the times when students come to us who don't have agents or advisors on shore, like, they've come from their home country, but the agent or advisor doesn't have a presence in New Zealand, they listen to their friends and colleagues and they just do what they've been advised there. It's great to have well-wishers, but please understand, lawyers and advisors have to actually do a course to understand and interpret policy and instructions. So if you are going to seek advice from friends because they did something 5 years ago, it was so easy. A lot of people come to us once they have already screwed up their process. And it's very difficult to turn it back because that information is already with immigration. You can't change it. Okay? So you got to be very careful. You listen to advice, listen to all that people have to say, but be very mindful when you actually implement it in your visa process. Right? It's also illegal to take immigration advice or to give immigration advice from unlicensed agents in New Zealand specifically, because offshore, I know there's operations where people are unlicensed and the Immigration Advisor Authority may not have the kind of say on controlling that. But within New Zealand, you've got to be very, very mindful to not make decisions pertaining to immigration based on what friends are saying. Yeah, because once that process gets queued, it's very difficult to pull back. And you're going to end up spending a lot more money on paying an advisor to sort it out for you. Yeah. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Now this is us. There's Mary, there's me, and then we have our onshore client success manager, Reena. Reena and Mary sit in Auckland, and I'm in Christchurch. And yeah, do you want to talk about that?
Okay, before I jump into this, one thing that I wanted to, it just kind of screamed at me. And recently, there was a problem with one of my students who was studying at a very well-known university. She found a job even before she graduated. Okay, So she started working. This is a very, very interesting case. So she started working, and the employer was very keen to have her on board over the summer break. Said, listen, I know you're going to pass with flying colors, but we can't wait. We've got a project for you. So why don't you just go ahead and apply for an accredited employer work visa? You don't need your post-study. It'll get you a 3-year accredited employer work visa. So what she did, obviously, she didn't want to lose the opportunity with her employer, where she was working part-time already. And the employer had an immigration advisor on board, and she went straight into an accredited employer work visa. Even before finishing her course, she had applied for an accredited employer work visa. That was all great. She was on her pathway to residence, actually. In about a couple of months, she would have qualified for that. However, for some reason, the employer lost a few projects and they made her redundant within 3 months of getting her accredited employer work visa. So the girl lost the opportunity for post-study as well, because she would have applied for a post-study if the employer had not pushed her. So please be careful of these things, and the thing is, they had an advice on board. She had to go with the employer, though she was our student. She couldn't talk to us, though she would talk to us every other month. But because the employer already had an advice on board, she went with them and said, okay, great, what could go wrong? All it could go wrong is the employer lost a few projects and she lost her job there as well. And then she had crossed the 3 months of the post-study work visa problem. Yeah. She was already 1 month after that post-study work visa end date, and then we had trouble, and then we fought with immigration, used a few advocacies, we pulled out a few loopholes in the policy itself, and we actually got her a post-study work visa. I fought with immigration, and I'm so glad I did. But please be careful. It won't happen all the time, right? So far, we had 3 cases like this who we fought where people were not qualifying. It was, after their 3 months of the post-study work visa. And they all had genuine reasons. They had good reasons why they, did not apply on time, or, there was this problem. But it won't happen with everybody. So understand, it might look very small. It might look very simple on your end. But immigration law is law. Right? The words, the way you understand it, it could be different. Also, two other problems. Yes, you might think immigration might have all my solutions, so I'll call the immigration helpline and get that advice. I would not encourage you to do that. The reason being, the people sitting on that call center are not people who have read the law. They go with this call script which is on their background, and basically they just give you generalized answers and they're not personalized for your circumstances. I have seen 8 out of 10 times the answers being wrong in immigration, that immigrants have got wrong information from the helpline because they are generalized responses and they may not have the full story of your situation. And they ended up doing simple thing recently, where this girl, 30 weeks of study, we all know now that you have to study. So she had booked in a break to go and visit her home country. And she was like, you know what, I asked the university said I could go. I called immigration and they said, yeah, I could do 6 weeks and I can study remotely. She would have been 2 weeks short on her 30 weeks if she had studied from India. And immigration said, yeah, as long as you have permission from the university, you'll be fine. But we know that if she would have applied for post-study after that, she would have fell short of 2 weeks because she would have been in her home country studying. See, these are the things that unfortunately immigration does not pay attention to, because also the people who are picking up those phone calls are not advisors. There's some generic, probably high school graduates sitting and manning those phone lines. I'm sorry, but that's the fact, and I got to put that out there. We go through a 1-year graduate diploma. We go through, CPD and supervision and all that jazz for nothing, for these guys to, basically screw it up by giving generalized information on that call center. So please be careful, right? So we are opening up the lines on our end. That scanner there will get you on our database. Please scan. Number one, you will join our newsletters and all our communications. Second, we will have your information on our database when you call us. We know where we've met you, where we've interacted, and we will start having, I don't know, a whole horoscope on you with us. Every time you call us, you just say, hey, listen, we met at UC. Can I speak to Namrata or Mary? I just have this. And we will do this free of cost till you're ready to make an application through us. Most advisors here in this country charge you by the hour to give advice. But because we work closely with the University of Canterbury and with UCSA, we are offering this free advice line for you guys, right? And don't keep this to yourselves. Don't be selfish. Don't gatekeep. Please share it with your friends, because all immigrants and all students coming to study here need to have this helpline, right? And we are happy because we've always been selfish on that. We said all AJV students will only get this assistance free of cost. However, we do understand how vulnerable you guys are, and trying to kind of make it here in this country, and we don't want you to be in the dark around these things, right?
Also,
So
Mary, I want to cut in. It also helps us in the long run.
yeah.
Because what happens is we would rather you seek advice from us free and understand and do the process right than come to us once everything is screwed up
Yeah.
and it takes 10 times the
Effort and energy
solving it.
and the money, let's not forget. And not all problems are resolvable, though we have been 99% on point. But yeah, we've got 100% on our residents. We've got approval rates, sorry. Our students, 80% of our AJV students coming through to us become residents in the first 5 years. It's a very high hit rate when it comes to international students converting to residents. The country conversion 2017 stats is 17% only. We are on the other side, we're 80 plus. And so that's because we ensure that this is set right. Even when they're studying, the courses are perfect. They understand what leads to residence and stuff like that. So like I said, the phone lines are open to you. Don't call immigration. Don't wait for 3 hours. Any number of times you want to call us, we're happy to answer. We're quicker on emails. Also because there's always a record of what we've discussed, right? Even if you're not coming to us, whoever you're talking to, get it in writing. Get advice in writing. Do not listen on the phone and let it be. So Namrata has got this amazing habit, okay? People call. She ensures she paragraph, summarize everything and put it in writing, and then sends them advice in email so that you know what you're listening, whether you're interpreting it right.
That's the problem when you talk to an immigration contact center, you never get anything in writing. Those of you who have called immigration contact center, how many of you can say you've received the advice in writing, that they emailed you the information? You have? You're very lucky. You're possibly.
I asked for it specifically.
Yeah.
We also
Good
ask
on you.
sometimes. But they will say, oh, we can't email it. And you are, I think, one of first ones I've ever heard who has actually got a written advice from the contact center.
Not advice actually. I think it was something about interim visa or something. So
Oh, okay.
That's policy. That's
yeah, so they sent me this written
Correct.
policy chart
So
thing.
they send you a policy chart. I'm talking about advice where they say like this, oh, go and study offshore. That's fine if the university agrees. You'll be okay. Try and get that in writing from them that you'll be okay for a post study after that. I
Yeah.
can pretty much bet whatever I have, and not that I have not, you will not get it in writing.
Yeah. Also because she's ex-INC, she knows. She's worked in the Delhi office for what, 13 years? 16 years, yes. Okay, so scan, please leave your details up there. We'll leave that there for a bit. Like I said, it's good to stay on our database. We also update policy quite regularly. We are very, very active on social media. Any new updates, anything, it's all up there. We do live sessions. Namrata and Reena also organize these info sessions when there's a policy change and stuff like that. You can hop onto those sessions. And like I said, we're just an email away. We are faster and efficient in an email. So even if Namrata is not around, you can copy me in and we quickly, kind of come back to you. And I'm here to give away 2 movie tickets. So yeah, please put in your details and then we'll go to Slido after this. Yes.
What rights do we have when we are on a post-study work visa?
Like
Good
any
question.
employee, what rights as an sponsor medical insurance?
Some kind of health insurance they do give you, right?
Not all employers, but yes. Okay.
Some of them.
Yeah.
But at this stage, I'm not a resident. I'm not a citizen. So if I have some medical issue, who do I go to?
So I think it is with 3 years, right? The insurance that you get?
No, that's
Yeah, the health.
Okay. So, yeah, we would reserve those for the Q&A, but why don't you guys quickly finish that and I'll get to you, yeah? Finish the scan and, whoops, that was, okay, right.
Don't collapse on me, please.
No, I'm sure we have an incident report that we can sign after this, or health and safety, whatever. Yeah, if you guys can quickly fill up those, the form, get onto our database, and then we'll move to the Q&A, and I'll cover all these questions. Because we've got a session that Jesse's going to tell us how to get onto the Slido thing after this. Just finish this, yeah. How many of you have booked in for the one-on-ones? Quite a few of you, okay. And the ones who haven't, doesn't matter. Try and grab us when we are walking around. You can still have a chat if you want to, okay? Yeah. But yeah, that will be restricted. We'll time you. And then I'll charge you for every 10 minutes, I'll charge you for one coffee. You might have to come all the way to Auckland to pay me for that. Yeah, we don't mind.
Okay, so I can just explain how Slido works. Has everyone used Slido before? I see some nods and not really. So I think for students who have already kind of booked one-on-one sessions, maybe we might just, the people who don't have one-on-ones, if you can ask your questions first, I think that would be good, just because people who already booked sessions, you already have time on one-on-one with Namrita or Mary. So the next slide is going to be a QR code. And when you scan that, you can ask your questions anonymously, and then what happens is you can see all the other questions that come up that other people ask, and then you can upvote them for ones that you agree with that you want to be answered. So I'm just going to go to the next slide. So if you want to QR code that, if you have any questions, I know we've already asked a lot of questions already and answered them, which is great. But if anyone else has any other questions, you can ask them now, and then we can say the question in the microphone. So this is recorded, and we're going to be uploading it sometime in the near future. So you'll be able to hear those questions actually in the microphone and the whole session as well. Yeah, okay. It's also on the next slide, so I'm just going to get rid of this. Okay. So, if anyone has any questions, you can pop them up now, and then they'll show up.
I do have a couple of one-on-one slots available if they want to book.
Okay. How many? What times? So, Abhishek actually has some cancellations for one-on-ones. So, if anyone has is wanting a one-on-one session that they don't already have, then maybe come talk to me afterwards, and we can see what times are available. Yeah, it's today and tomorrow. So today and tomorrow as well. Oh,
Right, good.
here you go.
Let's start taking these questions. Okay. Is the minimum wages before tax or after? So there are two things when it comes to wages. One is minimum wage, which every employer is supposed to pay you legally for work. Okay? And obviously it is before tax. Okay? Now there's another concept you'd have heard, which is called median wage. There's a difference between minimum wage and median wage. Median wage is the requirement that you have for the skilled employment requirement. Okay? And the median wage is, Namrita's already covered that. So that even if you Google it, you will know what's the current median wage, right? You would have also heard living wage, which is slightly different. Again, I don't want to confuse you, but certain occupations, they assure people, giving them a living wage where they to keep up the standards here in the country. So there's living wage, but that's not related to immigration. So there are two things. Only median wage is related to yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, right. That's all right. So it's before tax. Yes. Okay, that was done. Okay, so we're going to go to the next one. In the visa application, when we are asked what countries we have been lately, do we have to say the countries? Oops, it's all running up. Ooh, hold on.
That's being upvoted, that's why.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to go quickly to the Slido page. Just give me a second. Yeah. Oops. Did I do something? Jesse? No, okay. But I'm not able to kind of scroll, so I'm just trying to.
I'll read it out for you. I'll read it.
Okay, hold on.
I'm just going to read the questions. So let's go with the one that you were already reading, Mary. In the visa application, when we are asked what countries we have been to lately, do we have to say the countries where a flight to New Zealand stopped temporarily?
Good question. I'd say yes or no. Then there'll be too many transit countries. So ideally, it's something there where you have stayed, like you entered and you stayed, and not really the transit countries. You should be okay if you miss the transit countries. Yeah.
I'm in New Zealand with my wife and daughter with partner of student work visa. Their expiry date is the same as mine. Can I apply for their visa same time as my post-study work visa?
Ideally, yes. Ideally, yes. Just apply together as a family, as a group, right? And then it's easier. However, the processing may happen differently because the team that processes the post-study work visa is one office and the partner and the child is actually another office. However, we have noticed they usually granted almost in a gap of 2 or 3 days if you lodge it together. Even though the queues are different and stuff like that, they tend to come back faster. And if we do it as advisors, we can do it as a group application and it's easier to do it. Yeah.
I am a master in strategy communication student. I have worked as a journalist in my country. Now I have a part-time job in sales here. Will this job help me?
I can't answer that straight off. It'll be great if we can meet in person and try and understand what your profile is in total. Plus, when you say sales, we don't know. So, yeah.
So sales is one area in ANSCO where either it's skill level 1, which is managerial, or it's skill level 4 or 5. So it depends where it is. And like I mentioned during our session, job description is paramount to do that ANSCO match. Are scholarships exempt from program fees?
What sense? What does this mean?
I don't know what that means from an immigration perspective.
Are you talking about when you apply for an extension of your student visa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
I'm currently here on scholarship.
okay.
And one of the questions in the application is if it's exempt from program fees, but I did not. The explanation for program fees was not very clear at the time.
Does your scholarship cover program fees completely, or is it just part?
Is it a full scholarship?
Is it a full scholarship?
Yes,
It is.
It pays for my tuition, and I still get a little bit extra.
Okay, right. Living expenses.
Stipend.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yes, the answer should be yes when you say it's exempt from fees. So you don't have to pay fees. So that's what it means. So that's good. Did you add your question there? I did. I don't know where it's. I think we just have to just tick that off. Okay, we're just gonna go one after the other. Oh, okay. Okay. How do you judge the ANSCO for the job? Is it related to the job or the title, or it can be job description? Does company judge that or the government judge that? That's a very interesting question, because I'd say first of all the company, they will have their structure, right? So the company will say we have a job title, right, and then we will give you tasks. Okay, that is the company's internal policy. However, immigration does not really care what your title is. They are going to look at your job description only. However, there is a bit of a problem there. Now, if the title, what the title mentioned there, has a exact title on ANSCO, like for example, there's a sales manager job or a sales managerial role, whatever managerial role, or certain, we have seen in certain areas where there is an overlap as well. So the title is for one ANSCO, but the job description matches for another ANSCO. Okay? In that cases, immigration might actually say, listen, you've given this title, it's and the employer will argue saying, no, this is a high skill level because it says as per ANSCO we have given the title. Immigration will argue saying, listen, we don't care about that. What matters for us is the job description and the tasks. We have seen a lot of managerial roles being given no autonomy. Okay. Number one, they have not been given autonomy, or they have not given any management independent decision ability. Like for example, the simplest of the things. Oh, I'm a shift manager at McDonald's. This is the most common thing that used to happen in the past. Is I am a shift manager at McDonald's. A shift manager does nothing but a roster in McDonald's. That is not a duty manager, which shift manager equivalent is what a lot of people claim is duty manager on ANSCO. Unfortunately, it does not give them any leadership ability or management ability, and that's why immigration will not accept that. Okay, so I would say the full and final is job description, right? Not the title. However, how your advisor presents it to immigration is really important. Number one. Second, who judges at the end of the day when you apply for a visa application, the decision lies with an immigration officer, right? No matter what you claim or your advisor claims or your employer claims, your immigration officer is the one who decides whether it's suitable or not. Okay, so that's very important to know. Okay, close that. Are graduate level jobs considered eligible for SMC? Absolutely. So I know what you mean by graduate jobs. Graduate jobs are basically over here in New Zealand, at least. It's like an internship, but they don't call it an internship. You know, they say graduate jobs. It's for people without any work experience to get in, right? Engineers, yes, a lot of fresh engineers get in. So yes, graduate jobs will qualify. Does not matter. Like I said, the job description is more important, right? Even if you're getting in as a fresher, it does not matter.
Just a little bit of a disclaimer on that, because recently I had someone who was a graduate civil engineer. If you look at civil engineer in terms of ANSCO, the description is someone who plans and organizes. So they do have the responsibility to do a lot of that. Someone did come back with a graduate engineer role. So again, I think I'm not an engineer, but I believe graduate engineers have level 1 to 3, then 4 to 6. You know, like you grow in that space. So they were very, very fresh in terms of never having worked as an engineer. Their job description, while they were a graduate civil engineer, their job description did not give them the ability to actually plan and organize. They had to do it under direct supervision of another full engineer. That would be a bit tricky to pass off for being a skilled job, because at that current point, they were not doing the planning and organizing. They did say that this is the stepping stone. In 6 months, I would move further up, and in a year, I would be a full-fledged engineer. So the job description will change to reflect that. That's what I was told. So you got to be very job description is
the final thing of everything. Yeah, right. Let's move on. I think we're kind of running a bit behind on time as well. Yes, sorry, you cannot buy property unless you're a resident here in New Zealand. So that's the answer is no. Oops. Okay. Hold on. Sorry, I'm a. Okay. I'm an Apple person, so I struggle with this. Okay. What's better, wait for PSWV if your potential to apply for 1 year AWV as... No, don't do that. I just actually said that. Do not apply for a post-study work AWV unless, unless you're going straight to residence. a lot of people might get a job which qualifies them for straight to residence. Only then I think it'll be a good bet. Yeah, because you're going straight into resident visa. But if you are moving into an accredited employer, you're technically eligible for a post-study, but you're moving into an accredited employer, I would say give it at least 3 to 6 months before you move into the accredited employer. Because if your job, like I just mentioned the scenario where this girl got redundant within the first 3 months, and then they end up not having the eligibility for a post-study work visa also, you'll really be in trouble. So I'd say you have to take a very careful and calculated approach instead of, moving into the post-study, the accredited employer straight off.
Bear in mind, a post-study visa is an open visa, which means if you need to move employers, you're able to do that.
Yeah.
Accredited employer will have an employer name, the location, the region, and the title that you can work. So it kind of makes it difficult if you, let's say you have a problem with the employer, or not a problem, you just get a better opportunity. Let's say you're in Christchurch, you get a better opportunity in Wellington or Auckland or Queenstown. You can't just pack up and move. You need to get another visa which changes your location, your employer, and all of that. Whereas on a post-study, it's an open visa. So today I'm working here, tomorrow I get a great offer from in another city, another employer, even another role. I can just pack my bags and go.
Yeah. The other thing that it jumped at me is if you're about to, if you are a PhD student, you're already having full-time work rights, number one, right? So it lets you start working with an employer full-time, right? So those rights are there. So what we also do is we also give out letters. We also give explanation on policy wherever required for students, where in case of PhD students, I've seen where they have come to us and say, listen, the employer doesn't understand that I can work full time. Can you send me an email? Yeah. Even though they have, the visa and everything, they don't tend to understand that. They want to understand if there's any restrictions around, oh, I'm not accredited. Can I offer you a job? And a couple of other things. We actually give you an explanation to your email, which you could forward to your employers. We could do that. So my understanding is if you're on a PhD, you're already working full time. That could possibly get you your SMC. So if suppose you, in the first year of your PhD, you get 1 year work experience working full time.
But the PhD, only after completion, you get your 6 points.
6 points. But what if they have a master's already and that 1 year work experience?
You have to explain the situation.
Correct. So suppose you've got a master's from your home country, you're working full time 1 year in New Zealand in skilled employment, right? Maybe there's a possibility in year 2 of your PhD you'd qualify for SMC. Yeah? Because you've got a skilled job. And you've got 1 year full experience in New Zealand, which is master's 5 points, and 1 year of work experience in New Zealand gets you 6 points.
The only issue could be because you need to be on a work visa.
Correct. So there is a bit of a technical issue there.
Can I just say I wouldn't recommend working full-time while you're doing your PhD. I really don't think you should do that. We've had students who have done that because I help students, PhD, masters, all of that. And it's really hard to do a PhD while you're working full-time, even if it's 30 hours or even 40 hours.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't recommend that. You need to actually pass to get in to, get all these points, right? So I would recommend not doing that.
It's almost impossible for a PhD student.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
We're going to have to balance the
Yes.
PhD studies and
Definitely. It's a great idea though.
And the priority
But-
needs to be the study because that's the
Yes.
visa.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So you've got to take that, very carefully. Like I said, not everybody, but I do have 1 or 2 students who were able to do that purely because they were teaching or doing something related directly to what they were studying, and it was not away from. So there were I don't know how they did it. There are exceptions, but we do not recommend that. Okay, let's move on. What are the benefits of welfare available for pregnant individuals under a student visa and work visa? Okay, so let's look at health in general. While you're on a student visa, you're covered with student insurance, which will obviously be very limited. And unfortunately, I don't think pregnancy cover will be there on a student visa. Okay. However, on a work visa, if you do move into a work visa and you get a 3-year post-study work visa, okay, you will be eligible for public funded health on a work visa. However, the work visa should be for minimum 2 years for you to be eligible for the public funded health. Okay, so the public funded health means hospital care, everything. You go into the hospital, you come out without paying a penny. So that's anybody who holds a 2-year minimum work visa is eligible for this. This includes post study work visa holders, accredited employer work visa holders, and partners or children of work visa holders. Okay. Um, however, out of personal experience, I recommend everybody to get insurance. Okay, it's just to speed up the process for any non-emergency care. Okay, I'll give you my personal example. I had a problem for appendicitis, and I went to public health. I'm a resident here. I got into public health line, and I had to wait for nearly 8 days to get operated. If you want to cut those queues, it's better to have insurance. It won't cost a family of 3. It'll cost you, if it's non-smoker and you're younger and stuff like that, about $30 a week as a family. But it helps you cut those queues. So I could just go to a private, thing and get it done, like have a proper appointment and get it. But public funded health works slightly differently. You need to get admitted there and stay as long as they ask you to till you get operated. You can't go home and stay and wait and come back. So all those challenges are there. But if you are, but I think but maternity care is one of the best care here in New Zealand though, because that's emergency and stuff like that. So pregnancy care is one of the best. So you don't have to worry if it's under that. Okay. The last one, course completion date is 17 July. Student expiry is 31st August. But submit thesis paper on 18th August. So okay. Yes, it will impact because your results won't be up by the 31st of August. We recommend you get a letter from the university that you've paid the fees in full and only waiting for your results. Show your post-study, show funds for living expenses for 2 months minimum. But see, some universities take longer for thesis corrections. I have seen it taking to somewhere up to 4 months as well. Because normal master's submissions, usually they are done in about a month or 2. But thesis, I believe, is longer. It might take up to 4 months as well. So you need to get those timeframes from the university clearly saying how long it's going to take. You've got to show months, so many months of living expenses. So that's $1,600, $1,666 per month into 4 and apply for your student visa extension, not post-study work visa yet, because you wouldn't have your completion certificate and your eligibility to graduate by that time. Okay, so be prepared with the money. Please be careful of that. Also, I think a lot of people do mistake of the funds. They try and borrow funds and dump it into their account just to show for the visa. That's not acceptable. Okay, the living expenses have to be available in reality and not borrowed from friends. Anything more than $1,000 on your bank statement will be questioned by immigration, because you're a student. You're not supposed to have such dump of money in your account, right? So we recommend you speak to your family and bring that from offshore and show proof. But anything beyond that, don't gather. There was this time where students would have like collectively 10,000 and they would move that funds across each other's accounts and they applied for their visa and the whole bunch of people got visas declined. Please do not do such things. Yeah. Yes, the people are very creative. Yeah, very creative. And they dig a good grave for themselves, so
This is them using their own
yeah,
not
brains.
checking with anyone, because they're like, we could do that. We are all buddies.
Yeah, I said, how does it matter? Yeah, okay. So I think we're kind of done with the questions. Yeah.
So I'm staying with my wife, right? And
Yeah.
the fund is my wife's here and the
Yeah.
fund is in her bank account. Can I use that as
Unfortunately, the policy says it has to be on the student's name. That's why I said there are certain, say the post-study has a different wording and the student visa has a different wording. The student visa clearly says the funds have to be on the student's name. It should be held on the student's name. I cannot remember for the post-study, but I know when you apply for a student visa extension, the funds have to be in your account or the initial sponsor who sponsored your student visa when you came into the country, right? So there's a bit and the wordings keep changing. These guys, immigration also changes it overnight and we have no clue about it. It changes. Like one day Namrata's taken a screenshot and advised someone, then the following day it changes, and she's like, oh my god, what happened in one night, so we've got to be careful. So as on that day, whatever it reads, we've got to go with that. Okay, so ideally yes, but it's not too complicated for you to move that money from New Zealand. Happens in 10 minutes, as long as you can show that it's come from your wife's account. That should be fine. And as long as she's willing to give it to you in case she's got trouble with it. Maybe she's got some plans with that, so you've got to be careful.
Okay, I think that wraps up our info session. Thank you to Namrita and Mary. I think we should do a round of applause. And thank you also for coming as well. I think we're going to wrap it up. It's been quite a long couple hours. But if you haven't booked a one-on-one, just maybe come talk to me and Abhishek over here. And there's, I think, 2 slots available. There's cake over there as well. So please grab some cake. It's chocolate cake and red velvet cake. Yeah. Thank you for coming. And to those who have booked one-on-ones, we are looking forward to seeing you. But so just when you come to the foyer just out there. Cool. Thank you.